Welcome to the English edition of La Magia de Sanar podcast. My name is Carla Melo, and here I want to share with you my internal healing process. What inspired me to share all this is to see tons of women believing that they are alone in their journey, thinking that this is happening only to me, feeling that no one can understand them, feeling guilty and stressed about not finding the magic pill that would let them to get the result they want in their lives. So, what I want you to realize is that any problem that we repeat in our life is just a symptom, the surface of the iceberg, a little wound in our skin, because what is really inside it goes far beyond what we can see with our eyes. But anyway, whatever you're struggling with right now, I just want you to know that you will handle it. You will find the answer you are looking for, and the best of all is that the magic formula to get it, it's already inside you. We all have everything we need. We just need to find the way to get it. So, here I will share with you my magic toolbox with all the resources that I have discovered along this beautiful process called healing, where I have to get to know myself more than ever. And hint hint, this will be your superpower, and I just want you to dare to do it. Dare to reinvent yourself and become the powerful and amazing woman you deserve to be, so you can shine and live every single day full of magic, with purpose, freedom, happiness, following your intuition, and above all, realizing that you are enough and you can come through anything you want. Follow me on Instagram as carlameloc333. I will be so glad to chat with you about anything you wonder about this beautiful process. Good morning with everyone. Welcome to La Magia de Sanar podcast. This is my first episode in English edition, so I wanted to have a very special guest. I have followed her journey since many years ago, and I do believe she is an expert in teaching how to achieve the best version of yourself. She knows how to make magic in order to bring the best of you inside out. Plus, that she teaches you how to build all the confidence you need to achieve the body that you always dream, without any fat diet or crazy quick fix, but creating habits that last forever. You can achieve lasting fat loss. She's an amazing woman, entrepreneur, food freedom expert, and forever recovered disorder eating. And she is a nutrition coach who has helped hundreds of women to become happier and healthier, and the most important, to feel enough. Her name is Nicole Hagen. Welcome, Nicole. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh my goodness, I am honored. That was quite the introduction. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
So nice to have you here. I'm very excited. And I would like you to tell us, how was your story? How did you become such a great nutrition coach? Did you always dream about being a coach, or how was your journey?
Great question. My hero's journey is definitely a complicated one because I didn't always see myself as being a coach. I was actually going to school to become a psychologist. I loved learning more about people and why they do what they do. I wanted to learn more about what makes people tick and why certain people struggle with some things and other people don't. That was always really interesting to me. I just loved learning about the interworkings of the brain and how that works. So my first degree is in psychology.
Oh, wow.
And while I was at college getting that degree, I was going through a lot in my personal life. My brother was actually struggling with a drug addiction, and I grew up in what I thought was a perfect family. So we grew up in a great neighborhood. We were very close as a family, had meals together. The 2.5 kids, American household, everything was great. And I didn't know how to deal with this trauma that was happening because I felt like my life was kind of coming undone with my brother's drug addiction. He didn't know how to handle that substance use. So he was in and out of recovery. My family didn't really know what to do because we had never experienced this before. And I was always kind of viewed as the firstborn, the perfectionist who kind of made everything better and fixed everything. And obviously
Everyone was just proud of you.
Exactly. And I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know what to do. So I felt out of control. And one thing that I could control was my food. So I started obsessing over my calories. I started logging everything I ate in a calorie counting app. I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day. I started running obsessively 5 miles or more every day, or else I felt like a failure. And I basically starved and shamed and punished myself into an eating disorder. So I was a size 00, super unhealthy, lost my period for 3 years, felt terrible. And that was kind of when I was like, wow, my relationship with food is super messed up. And I'm able to realize that it really doesn't have anything to do with food. It has to do with this big, scary thing in my life that I don't know how to deal with. I'm just making it about food. And so that's when my passion for nutrition started kicking off. And from there, I went and got my master's degree in nutrition, physical activity, and public health. And I was recovering myself from that eating disorder. I started going to therapy and working through like what I didn't know how to manage. So, long story short, no, I did not always want to be a nutrition coach. It kind of just fell in my lap because I struggled so severely. My eating disorder ended up resulting in a broken hip and a broken spine because I didn't eat enough and I was punishing my body with exercise. So at that point in my life, I knew, wow, I never want another woman to struggle with food like I did. And if she does, I want to help her recover like I did. So I knew that I wanted to be the expert that I didn't have when I was struggling. So that's what brought me here. That's why I'm a nutrition coach.
Wow, but you were recovering while you were studying your master's degrees. How was
Yes.
the journey? How easy was to find actually what you say? Because there are not, now I think there are more, but it's not easy to find a professional that can understand or have enough empathy with what you have. Because when you have an eating disorder, you just think that it's only you that is happening that.
Right. You feel alone. Yeah. And I think it was my background of understanding a little bit about psychology. So, like, why am I doing this thing? Let me question it rather than just making it about food. I was able to understand and dig a little bit that my issue wasn't with food. So, you might have heard the expression, there's no food that is, I'm using air quotes, more bad for you or unhealthy for you than the story you tell yourself about food.
Totally.
And that's true. So while I was getting my master's degree, I was learning about nutrition science and why the body needs energy and how energy affects performance and affects energy and affects our body composition. And I thought, well, I can't be a helpful professional if I don't have my shit together, basically. So I started kind of walking through my own journey, getting the mental health treatment I needed from a professional. And then nutritionally, since I was getting the education that I needed, I kind of walked myself through that. So I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. Like, you should seek out help. And I wish I had more help from another professional. But like I said, I just didn't know who to go to. And there's a lot of stigma and shame around eating disorders and just women struggling with food. So it didn't feel like something I could just openly talk about and share either. Like I was very much hiding it. I don't think people knew I was struggling as much as I was.
But how easy was for you to share it with the world? Like, how did you have enough, like, strong to be vulnerable and show, okay, this is my story? Did you share first with your partner, with your family? Because I think that's the scariest step when you are struggling with something like this.
Yeah, it was really hard. And honestly, at the beginning, I didn't share as openly as I do now because I think I had to work through my own story before I felt comfortable sharing it with others. Because I didn't want to share any misinformation, which I did. At the beginning, I shared a lot of things that I don't stand behind now. But I had to work through it myself before I felt comfortable bringing other people into my story. And strangely enough, funny that you ask, Carla, I shared it with my family last. So I felt more comfortable putting out like a blog post or writing content and sharing with other people behind a screen because I feel like there's some protection there.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel as comfortable sharing with my family. What caused me to share more and more and more is the reception I received. The people who would send me messages or leave comments or give me a text and say, oh my gosh, Nicole, I feel the same way. No one's ever talked about this before. I'm so glad that you shared your story because I've been in the same shoes. I've been in that situation. You're helping me so much. So it was everybody making those comments where I was like, wow. So it's uncomfortable for me to share because I'm making myself vulnerable. I'm putting myself out there. But if I can help even just one person, I'm going to do that because I don't want anyone to have to go through what I went through or a similar situation. So that's kind of what led me to share. And then more and more I started opening up. And I don't know that we want to go down this rabbit trail, but it was even hard for my family to hear me open up about it because I was talking about, how it started with my brother's substance use. And now I was struggling with eating disorder recovery. And at first my parents thought, well, what does that say about us as parents? Like, people are going to think we're bad parents. I didn't think that way. I know my brother didn't feel that way either, but there's this perception of like, wow, you're really struggling. So that must mean you had a terrible upbringing. I didn't. I had a fantastic relationship with food as a child. My parents are fantastic. So I think it was hard for my family to hear me share about all of these things. And we kind of had to set some boundaries. So I had to say, hey, I'm going to speak my truth. And it may make you uncomfortable sometimes. And that's not ever my intention, but I can't stay quiet about this. One, because I need it for my recovery, but two, because now this is my mission. This is my purpose. This is my passion. And I have to speak up and help other women. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because I think having the support of your family, most than the people that, like you said, are behind the screen, is more difficult, actually. But how was this journey? How much does it last? Do you think, how much does it take to find your balance? How it was for you?
I think it's a lifelong journey. Honestly, I think it never actually stops, which is why on my podcast intro, I always say I'm a forever recovering disordered eater, because I think you can make leaps and bounds and recover from, the behaviors that you were exhibiting that were unhealthy. But you may always have, well, you will always have that history, that experience that sticks with you. And you might always have that little voice in your brain that's like, oh, wait, you're really stressed. We should restrict, we should control because life feels out of control. But now that I've done all the work, the mindset work, the physical work, that voice is so quiet and so little that I can easily just dismiss it as like background noise and say, no, that's not true. Not everything I think is true. What I know is going to help me is going this route, right? Engaging in these behaviors. So I think finding that balance, it's a lifelong thing because there's always going to be a new curveball. Life is always going to throw you a new barrier, and you constantly have to work through that. And nutrition is something you can't ignore. You have to eat every day. So you're always having to make choices that serve you or don't serve you. And if they don't serve you, work through why you made that choice. So yeah, I think it's hard. But when I think about balance, I think mint chocolate chip ice cream and a big green leafy salad. I think, crushing your strength training workouts and taking rest days. I think, pushing yourself to reach new goals, but also respecting your boundaries and limitations. And I think it goes the same way with recovery. Like, you're going to have days that feel amazing and you're on top of the world and you're like, yes, I've got this. But then there are days where things just feel hard, and that's okay. Like, I think to expect to have both actually sets you up for more success than to think, oh, I'm going to get this and then things are going to feel perfect. That's not real life.
Exactly. I think this is the purpose of building your own balance, not to think like, okay, it's like the relationship with your body. You think like, okay, I love my body, but that doesn't mean that one day you wake up and it's like, oh, I don't like any clothes, how I look in any clothes, because that's also something that happens some days. But it's like, accept it. And okay, it's like, it's toxic positiveness. I don't know if you have heard about it. It's like, it's not about that. It's just like to accept that it's good and bad days, but it's part of the process.
Absolutely.
But talking about that, and how is this like after you have had an eating disorder and you're recovered, do you think that is possible after you are healed your relationship with food? There you have more tools to not hearing the little voice. Do you think it's possible to achieve like these fitness goals, like to achieve like fat loss? Or like, because nowadays that this movement of highs and body positiveness, it stands like, okay, you have to accept your body and okay, it's how it is. But at least for me, and I know that you share the same kind of philosophy, that loving your body is also like wanted to change it, but the way you do is the difference. How do you think about
Absolutely.
this?
Yeah, no, there's a lot that we could unpack there. And I think it starts with what you started to talk about, Carla, which is the definition of body positivity or body acceptance. It does not mean that you love every single thing about your body. It does not mean that only people who are small and lean and light can feel good about their bodies. And anyone and everyone can practice body acceptance. So I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes we like to convolute the definition of body positivity or body acceptance. And the same thing goes for HAES. So health at every size. The health at every size is not supporting unhealthy behaviors. They're not anti-health. Health at every size is about creating access to health and well-being for more people. So unfortunately, in our healthcare, there's a weight bias. So there's an assumption that people who weigh more are less healthy and people who weigh less are more healthy. That's not always true, right? You can have a very small, thin person who consistently engages in unhealthy behaviors. They are less healthy than someone who has a higher body weight, but consistently engages in healthy behaviors. So the bottom line is that size and weight are not directly correlated with health status. Can they be? Absolutely. And that's another question that we can kind of talk about later. But I think your question is it possible for you to love your body while changing it? But then also, can you have aesthetic goals without restriction? And the answer is yes. So I will put a little disclaimer here and say, not at first. So if you are struggling with disordered eating or an eating disorder of any kind, recovery needs to be your one and only goal. You have to get to a place where you are eating enough calories, you are eating enough of certain macronutrients, are you getting the right amount of protein and carbohydrates and fats? You need to manage your mindset. So are you constantly beating yourself up around food? Do you have good foods and bad foods? Are you an all or nothing thinker and then you just give up and resign to start over again on Monday? Like, that's unhealthy. And that we need to change. I call it building a health first foundation. Weight loss can't be your goal. Fitness can't be your goal. Aesthetics can't be your goal. You just have to get yourself well. Like, you just have to learn how to nourish and care for your body. That's it. And I had to do that. And throughout that process, it actually came with weight gain for me. I needed to gain weight. Did I like that? No. Was I happy about doing it? No. But I know that I needed it for my health before I could pursue any future goal down the road. Once I got that health first foundation and I created that solid, confident relationship with food, then I could start to say, okay, well, let me challenge myself by setting a performance goal. Like, how much can I deadlift, or how fast can I run a mile? So I think at the beginning, you have to make sure you have that health first foundation and the healthy relationship with food. But once you do that work, which is a long, arduous process, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not easy, it's not simple. You can then create aesthetic goals. You can reach fitness goals because you have this full toolkit and you have a healthy mindset and a healthy body on which to build. So again, I think it's how we define restriction. So let's take fat loss, for example. I have a history of an eating disorder, and yet I have successfully gone through fat loss phases without relapsing back into disordered eating. In order to create fat loss, we have to be in a caloric deficit, right? Eating fewer calories than we're expending. That's a no-brainer. There's no way around it. It's required for fat loss. Is that restriction? Of a certain kind, yes, I am restricting. I am eating fewer calories. Does that mean that I have to cut out entire food groups? Does it mean I have to be hungry all the time and hate my life? Does it mean I have to log everything inside a calorie counting app? No. And so if that's how we're defining restriction, which is how I define restriction, then I can achieve those aesthetic goals. I can create fat loss without restriction. So I think it depends on how we're defining restriction. But what I want to stress is it's less about what you do and more about the motivation behind your behavior. So at that point in my journey, I wanted to lose body fat. One, because it's awesome to set a goal and prove to yourself that you can actually reach it in a healthy, sustainable way. Two, because I knew that certain health markers of mine were going to improve when I lost a healthy amount of body fat. So my motivation wasn't, I'm going to be a better person because I weigh less. My motivation wasn't, I'm going to be worth more because I live in a smaller body. My motivation wasn't, I hate myself, so I'm going to try to wear a smaller size so I can learn to love myself, because that's disordered eating. That is not a healthy motivation behind the goal. So I think we really need to check why we want a goal. But if your why is healthy, you're building on a strong foundation, then yes, you can absolutely achieve fitness and aesthetic goals, even though you have a history or a background of struggling with food. I think if we surveyed most women, and it's not just excluded to women, men too, most women and men have dealt with some type of like disordered eating behavior. So thank goodness we can still recover from that and then move on to reach amazing goals.
Exactly. And I think the key point here is also patience, right? Because we are so used to quick fixes and we want, okay, actually, I have gone through the all-in process to recover my period the last month. So for me, it was kind of difficult also to experience this weight gain and set up, okay, this is my main priority now. I can focus in like aesthetic goals or whatever. But after that is okay, after having an eating disorder, that exactly what quick fix work, and how to look how you want in a month. But with all the tools and all the knowledge you have, that that process could take even like twice on the first time or whatever. How do you build that patience, and how do you build this sustainable fat loss that lasts forever? Like, because the most of the diets, I think, is 95% in average, that just like recover twice the weight that they lose.
Yep, 95% of diets fail in that people are not successful at keeping the weight off that they lost, which is heartbreaking when you think about it. And it basically, I mean, if something had a 95% failure rate, I wouldn't try it. Like, I wouldn't do it. And yet here we are, most of us still crash dieting. I think patience is key. In fact, scratch that. I know patience is key. And it's hard. I mean, I don't like to be patient either, but the bottom line is we have to be. Like, all good things take time, and I don't have to like it, but that's just the way that it is. So you didn't create this disordered relationship with food in 30 days. This is something that may have been instilled in you from childhood. Like, maybe your parents didn't have a great relationship with food. Maybe you learned that you were dieting at age 12 and you learned that certain foods were good or bad. Or maybe you didn't struggle with it until adolescence, but nevertheless, you've been struggling for years, for some people, even decades. And now you want to undo that with a 30-day diet? No, it doesn't work that way. Like, sorry, not sorry. It's not going to happen. So I think we have to first, I call it unsubscribing from unrealistic expectations. You are not going to lose body fat and keep it off if you're not going to continue with the behaviors that you lost the weight with to begin with. So I'm not going to cut carbs to lose body fat because I don't want to live my life without carbohydrates. So I have to find a more sustainable way to lose body fat, which means it happens slower, so that I know that it's going to stay off and I'm going to feel good with my healthy behaviors for life. Slow fat loss is not sexy. Like, I know that better than anybody else because it's what I'm trying to help people achieve. And let me tell you, like, it is not compared to like things that are like lose 21 pounds in 21 days, like try this detox and shed 7 pounds this weekend. Me over here, like, hey, do you want to lose weight? Like half a pound to 2 pounds per week, really slowly, but know that it's going to stay off forever. Like, that's a harder sell.
Exactly.
But I think at the end of the day, you have to remember that deprivation diets, quick fixes, fads, anything like that, it's causing weight loss, but it's costing you your health. So I've dieted right back in my disordered eating days. I was miserable. I was unhappy. My hair was falling out. I was hungry all the time. I didn't enjoy anything I ate. I couldn't go out to eat without peeing my pants because I was so afraid. But when you're pursuing sustainable fat loss, which is what I help my clients to achieve, we build a healthy foundation first. Are you eating enough? So for someone who was under eating, getting you back up to the right amount of calories takes time. and you're not going to lose weight while you're doing it. That's what we call a reverse diet. So there's a perfect example of where you have to be super patient, because that's going to take you months because of the damage you've done. You now have to build yourself back up. Just like you mentioned, recovering your period. If you were under eating and over exercising, you have to reverse that. And that takes time for your body to realize, oh, I'm safe now. I can increase my metabolism and bring my reproductive system back online because now I am getting enough. So it's one of those things where I only want to help you achieve fat loss that adds to your life and gives to your health. And yeah, that means it's going to happen slower, but I'm willing to take that trade-off. And I think most of the clients that I work with who have done the crash dieting and realize just how damaging it can be are willing to take that trade-off too.
Exactly. And what do you think is the most difficult part of this journey? Like to create these habits that, for example, I do love ice cream, but I know that ice cream is not that good for me, but I don't want to take it into my life. Like taking it out will like be worse than having it. But of course, I want to keep this goal. How do you approach this? Like,
Yeah, that's
like
tough
black and
because
white mentality.
yes, you just said it, all or nothing thinking. That is what diet culture perpetuates. So you are going to do this thing perfectly. You're going to eat these quote good foods, only these good foods, or you fail. You fall off the wagon. That's complete nonsense. We want to throw all that out. That's all or nothing thinking. And that's the hardest part, because even as we start to recover our relationship with food, let's say you previously thought ice cream was bad and fattening, you shouldn't have it, right? But now you're working on incorporating all foods into this relationship with food that still is going to allow you to reach your fat loss goal, but not cut anything out. But when you have ice cream and you try to enjoy it, that little voice that maybe is still loud is sitting on your shoulder like, ooh, you're going to gain weight from eating this. Ooh, you're bad for having ice cream. You're going to have to start all over again tomorrow. You're going to have to skip dinner tonight because you're eating this. You have to learn how to quiet that voice and talk back to it. I call this reframing or rewriting the story. That voice is going to be there because diet culture is very strong and very prevalent, but you have to then flip the script and say, okay, ice cream is not bad. It has no moral value. I can enjoy ice cream in moderation because it leaves me feeling good. And it's a food that I don't want to live my life without. And I don't have to punish myself for it. And given that most of the time I make food choices that do support my body and do give me the nutrients that I need, there is room for just the things that tickle my taste buds and just leave me feeling happy. So I think it's a constant battle, because even my clients still deal with, oh, Nicole, I ate out last night and I had 3 glasses of wine and I ate from the bread basket and now I feel like I've ruined everything. It was one meal. One tiny meal. And in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. So I think the hardest part is combating that all or nothing mindset and remembering that your body responds to what you do most often. And as long as you're committed to checking in with yourself and saying, hey, that didn't feel good. Why did that choice happen? Did I need 3 glasses of wine and the bread? Or would I have felt better with 2 glasses of wine and the bread? And then moving forward, once you realize that, you can't fail. You can't mess up. You can't mess this up, because the whole life, your life is the wagon. You can't fall off. So as long as you're committed to checking in with why something didn't feel good and changing it moving forward and changing the stories that say, you're bad for eating this, you shouldn't have this, this is a terrible food, you're not going to fail. You are only destined to succeed as long as you're challenging that voice. But I can be the first to say, I am a former all or nothing thinker. It is hard. It is hard to combat that voice, especially because there's so many influences in our world, social media especially, where it's like, oh, hey, carbs, evil, cut them out. Sugar, nope, hard no, don't do it. You're constantly bombarded by those messages. And I think you just have to learn, hey, this is what works for me and for my body, and own it unapologetically, because those things are just untruths. They're lies.
Okay.
And if we believe them, they're just going to keep sabotaging our success.
I'm talking about those kind of foods. Nowadays, it's super popular. This, like, for example, these keto products, sugar-free products, and all these, like, okay, try to avoid this. Sugar is addictive. All these messages in social media also. But sometimes I was also like totally afraid of sugar before. And I was like, yeah, but this, I just saw like sugar free, and okay, this is better. This is healthier. In any kind of product. Also, like it was a time of fat free or whatever before keto. How do you make those choices? Because I know that if we talk in nutritional value or like calories, some kind of keto or sugar free product can have more than a regular bread, let's say. But also, how do you challenge this voice or this diet culture that shows you that eating less or less calorie is better than talking about nutrition wise?
I think here's the best way for me to explain this question. Think about a triangle. On one end of the triangle, we have health. On the other end of the triangle, we have fat loss. And on the third end of the triangle, we have performance. Those three goals are not the same thing. So I could eat low calorie. I could eat sugar-free everything. I could drink diet soda all day. And I could eat foods that have very little fat and very little carb and very little sugar. And I could lose body weight because I'm in a caloric deficit. That is costing me health. So I am probably going to be the least healthy I have ever been eating those foods, because instead of calories, I'm choosing chemicals, right? So I think it depends on what you're after. There are some people who just want fat loss no matter what the cost. And that's fine. I'm not the coach for those people. I will not help them do that. But if you want healthy fat loss, it's important to know, okay, we're going to have to find somewhere in the middle of that triangle on that spectrum, because that might mean you choose the real food. Instead of fat-free cheese, you learn how to eat a moderate portion of cheese. Instead of sugar-free ice cream, you just learn how to eat ice cream in a mindful capacity so that you don't feel like you're cheating when you eat it, or you don't feel like you have to cut it out entirely. Oftentimes, the real thing is the most nutritious. It's giving you vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, all the things you need. And you're going to be more satiated and more satisfied if you eat the real thing. We just have to figure out why you feel guilty eating the real thing and what the right quantity is for you. So all of those things that you mentioned, like keto friendly, gluten-free, sugar-free, this is natural, it's all marketing. So it's the food industry trying to make more money because they know you want to be thinner or want to be healthier, and you equate those words with being thinner and healthier. Not always true. Look at the ingredients. I always tell my clients, you need to be an educated consumer and you need to know what you're eating. So I would rather you choose the calories over the chemicals, eat the real thing, and just learn how to do so in a mindful capacity, which I know is easier said than done. I mean, eating mindfully is a whole skill that we have to learn, but that would be my answer.
Totally, because I remember there's a time in my life that I tried to like reduce like the protein, animal protein consumption, or it was a diary actually. And then when I tried to like find these vegan products, most of them have like 10 or 15 ingredients, and then it's like, okay, I'm releasing one cheese that has like 2 or 3 ingredients, and I'm choosing this. Is like, is this really worth it? But most of the people doesn't even know how to check if it's good or not. You just check like, okay, even though the nutritional information is like about portions, so it's like, okay, this is nothing, and then you eat the whole bag. I think that's super common in vegan, for example, products.
Everything. So best example ever.
Or gluten-free.
Reduced fat peanut butter. Look, when you're at the supermarket next time, look at regular peanut butter, take the same brand, and then find the reduced fat version. Reduced fat peanut butter sounds like a great thing, right? Because I get fewer calories, and who doesn't love peanut butter, for the same amount of peanut butter. But when you look at that, peanut butter is a fat, so it makes no sense for us to cut out fat that it's going to taste the same. So in an effort to still make it tasty, they cut out a little fat and they pump it with sugar and salt.
Exactly.
So you're not doing yourself any favors. Just eat the real thing.
Totally. And how do you think you can find, for my experience, it's about priorities. How do you find this balance of including healthy meals, but no becoming orthorexic, or including like processed food, but no becoming this extreme, like, okay, I will just eat whatever, whenever I want? Because I think that's also a misconception of like, give fully permission to eat whatever you want with a messy eating. Because also, if if you're not connected enough with your body, the more sugar or the more processed food, the more you will want, because it's like in the brain you act like a chemical that just attract that kind of food. You want like the salad instead of whatever food process that you are used to. Right. So how do you find that balance?
This is a great question. And in fact, I was just talking yesterday about how I use intuitive eating principles within my coaching, but I do not call myself an intuitive eating coach, because intuitive eating is not, they do not support intentional fat loss. And I don't think that that's a bad thing if it's going to promote your health. But also with intuitive eating, it confuses a lot of people, because if you grew up eating a lot of fast food, well, that's going to feel intuitive to you, right? Like, this is what I grew up doing. I'm always going to do this. This is what feels good. So I agree that some people don't know how great their bodies can feel eating more healthy whole foods. And so that's where it's helpful to work with a professional and experiment. Like, how do I feel when I eat more vegetables? And does that change my bowel movements? Does it change my workout performance? Does it change my energy level? Does it change how much I'm bloated or how I feel in my body? Does it change my clothing fit, the weight on the scale? How do I feel when I eat more protein? Maybe I'm not eating enough. How do I feel when I eat less processed carbs? So I think a lot of us do need to go through those experiments and figure out what leaves us feeling our best. But a great way to know, well, what balance of whole foods versus processed foods is best for me, is by thinking forward. And if you could wave your magic wand and say, how do I want to look, feel, and perform as my best self? What does she do? What does her life look like, right? Like, actually visualize it. I want to feel fantastic, but I also want to be able to go to a dinner party and enjoy eating whatever's being served and not have to bring my own meal in a Tupperware container, right? I want to be able to work out and have all the energy in the world to do so and set PRs, but I want to enjoy ice cream with my husband on the weekend. And I want to be able to keep a relatively lean body composition, because that's what leaves me feeling my best and confident. But I also know that I'm not going to give up bread and alcohol and chocolate. So for me, it helps to assess the balance. I want both, and I'm not willing to give up certain things to get leaner, and that's fine. So it kind of helps me understand this 80-20 balance that a lot of people talk about. 80% of the time, most of the foods I eat, lean proteins, colorful vegetables, smart carbohydrates, healthy fats, making sure I'm staying hydrated. But then 20% of the time, less, whatever feels good for you, I'm enjoying foods that just freaking taste good, whether that's French fries or ice cream or a piece of birthday cake, whatever it is. So it is a difficult question to answer, because I think it varies person to person. Maybe someone else doesn't care to set fitness goals, so their eating might look different. Maybe he or she is more active than I am, so they need more carbs than I do. So it's completely individual, which is an icky answer, because I know nobody likes the answer, it depends, but it really does depend. What are your goals? What do you enjoy? And what do you want your life to look like? How do you want to live?
Also, because my metabolism, even we can eat exactly the same, but it still look different.
Exactly. Yes. There's no one right way to have a body, right? Genetically, you and I are very different. You could put two people next to each other and their needs might vary drastically. So I think that's all the more reason to experiment and find someone who can help you identify what leaves you feeling your best, because one size fits all doesn't fit anybody. So you need to figure out what kind of relationship with food leaves you looking, feeling, and performing the way that you want to. And Google can't tell you that. There's no prescriptive diet plan that can tell you that. You have to work with someone.
Yeah. And what about this? Like, you mentioned this, that you have to find your own balance, but there's a strong belief that if you want to look lean and to have, like, I'm not talking about, like, for example, like body contest and such, that you have to be very, very lean, but a good body composition and everything. But you have the belief that you have to count calories and control your food and portions, like exactly the grams and everything. How do you do that, like achieve your aesthetic goals without like having that extreme control or perfectionism?
This is my favorite question, because it depends on what you want. Some people want to track and they want to measure everything and weigh everything. I've been there. I lived that life. I want nothing to do with it because I did not do it in a healthy way. And I don't want to be 70 and have to measure my food to keep a healthy body, right? That's ridiculous. So I think it's important to acknowledge that calories always matter. If I want to live in a leaner body, I probably have to eat fewer calories than if I am living in a less lean body, a heavier body. But just because calories matter doesn't mean I need to count them. By making sure that I'm eating mostly nutrient dense foods, so things like fruits and vegetables take up a lot of space in your belly, lean proteins, smart carbs versus processed carbs like pretzels, chips, crackers, cookies, things like that, I'm going to feel satiated on fewer calories. Then there's the whole lifestyle component. If I'm getting enough sleep, I'm going to be better able to regulate my hunger and fullness cues. If I'm sleep deprived, I'm going to be hungry all the time and I'm never going to feel satisfied. If I manage my stress, I'm going to be able to eat when I'm physiologically hungry and in need of food. But if I'm stressed to the max and burnt out, I'm going to use food as a coping mechanism, which leads to me eating food when I don't need it. Am I moving often, or am I sitting in my chair for 8 to 10 hours a day and then moving to the couch to scroll Instagram for another couple of hours? So things like that significantly impact your body composition. So that's what I do with my clients, is help them to master these healthy habits. Are they eating the right amount? Do they know what it feels like when they're hungry? Or are they eating all the time and they don't even know when they're hungry? Are they sleeping enough? Are they doing anything for stress management? Are they moving consistently? Not just exercise, but also just daily movement. Are you walking the dog? Are you taking the stairs? Can you park further away in the parking lot? Little things like that make fat loss so much easier. So you can live in that leaner body without being glued to your tracking app. And the best thing is that your body is going to tell you what to do next. So your body is your best feedback mechanism. If your body is feeling leaner and you're noticing your clothes are fitting looser and you've got more energy and there's a lower number on the scale or a lower body fat percentage on the scale, great, you're in a caloric deficit. That's all you need to know. Make sure it's a sustainable rate and you feel like you can stick with it and you're golden. If you're going the opposite direction, there's your feedback. So you don't need the app. If you learn how to listen to your body, which I know is another cliche, but learn how to assess the metrics that your body gives you, you really don't need a tracking app measuring macros, calories, points, anything like that. And you can rely on those healthy habits and how your body feels. Did that answer your question, Carla?
Yeah, but totally in this part of like knowing like how much your body needs. For me, I was like practice fasting for a long time. So that leads me to disconnect totally with my hunger cues. So seriously, I was able to be like 20 hours without like, or I mean, like I didn't notice that I was hungry. I couldn't just drink water or whatever. How do you really connect with these hunger cues and know how much your body needs?
That's a great question. And it becomes a little complicated because if we have under-eaten for so long, or like yourself, you fasted, you learn how to turn your body cues off, your hunger and fullness cues. One, your body might feel like, well, she's not even feeding me when I'm hungry, so what's the point? Two, you like fasting, right? Well, I'm not going to get food anyway. I've got to wait another 16 hours or whatever it is. And if you're not getting enough energy, meaning you're under eating significantly, your body's trying to preserve all the energy it can. So hunger cues will sometimes go away. And in that situation, we need to get you reconnected with your body because you've been dissociated from it and you're living in your head like, oh, I should do this or I should eat this amount of calories, instead of asking, am I eating enough? Like, how do I feel? What's my body telling me? And so in that situation, we may need to use an app to figure out, where are you calorically? Are you 500 calories under, or are you 2000 calories under where you need to be? And from there, if someone was significantly under eating, we would walk them through a reverse diet. So progressively feeding them a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then as that happens, your metabolism works a little bit like a thermostat. So as you start to feed it more and nourish it more, it slowly starts to increase. So it's not like a light bulb switch, but it slowly starts to increase. And then what I notice is women who weren't eating enough, now they're eating more, which sounds counterintuitive, but they start to feel more hungry. And they're like, oh my gosh, I actually woke up hungry this morning. Awesome. That's your body's telling us that she's trusting you now and that she needs even more food. So for someone like that, we first have to reconnect her to her body by making sure she knows what enough food looks like and working up to that before we would ever create fat loss. So that has to come later. I love your question.
Yeah, that's great because I think it's super difficult, mainly for women, to like be comfortable with eating a lot or like looking a full plate, because it's like precious to have like the one that eat less is like better or whatever like that. And actually you talk also about metrics, how to like measure how is your progress. What happened in your experience when the scale doesn't move? How do you measure progress? Because that's the most common, like, okay, I'm losing this weight, I'm losing this weight. But actually, what happened when some of the times even you increase weight?
Great question. And honestly, it's so funny that you ask this because I am currently drafting a post for Friday that's going to be all about this. So I talk a lot about how the scale is a fine metric to use because it's easy, right? It's on your bathroom floor. You can step on it whenever, and it gives you feedback. That's one metric. But the number on the scale does not measure body fat. It can, but it's also measuring water weight, muscle mass, skeleton, your organs, uterine lining, like you name it. It's measuring so much. And so it could be up because you ate later the night before than usual. It could be up because you had more salt the day before. It could be up because you had more carbohydrate the day before and now you're retaining water. It could be up because your period's coming. It could be up because you're constipated. It could be up because you're stressed. So many different things impact the number on the scale. And it's a really big sabotage tool because you might have done everything right from a fat loss perspective or whatever your goal is at the time, but the number on the scale is up. So you freak out and you're like, what's the point? It's not working. But it may be working because your body fat could be down despite the fact that your weight is up. And that's a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. So I don't discourage tracking weight. It's fine if we use it, but it can never be the only thing we track. I encourage all of my clients to track multiple metrics because the scale is not overly reliable. So we may track things like energy level, mood, libido, sleep quality, workout performance, how they're recovering from their workouts, digestion, menstrual cycle, frequency of cravings. And then we have some other quantitative metrics like girth measurements, body fat percentage, gym PRs, clothing size, blood work, like if you go to the doctor's office and you're getting your health markers, habit compliance, like how consistent were you with your behaviors? All those things together will tell you whether or not you're making progress towards your ultimate goal. The scale, one teeny tiny little part. So don't let it sabotage your success. Make sure that you're getting the big picture by comparing all of those metrics. And not all my clients track all of those. We just pick several that mean a lot to them. Progress photos is another one. So there's so many ways to know whether you're progressing aside from the scale.
That's awesome. And finally, Nicole, I would like you to tell us how much do you think matters mental health in all this process? Because after, at least in my experience, in the last process of all in that I did, there was a time that I had to do a very strict protocol. And it was like in Christmas and everything. And it was too much stress for me, like living aside or like having a strict like diet, take more than when it was given to me. And I remember I learned from a coach also that you can have the best medicine in the world, but if it adds a stress to your life, it won't work for you. So I had to like, okay, I can't do this now and it's not for me. I prefer my mental health more than in this part, the physical like benefits that I had. How much do you think matters mental health in this process of fat loss or creating like a sustainable weight?
Mental health is everything. And I could just leave it at that, but I won't. I will expand a little bit. Mental health is a huge component of physical health. And sometimes we think of them as being silos, like, oh, mental health is so different from physical health. No, mental health is health. And the trickle down is very, very real. So Think about this. If you're not taking care of yourself mentally, or you don't feel well mentally, maybe you're depressed, you're stressed, you're burnt out, you're anxious. Well, that's going to impact your food choices and your self-care choices and ultimately your health and well-being. So you're not healthy, right? You're not well. And the inverse is also true. So if you neglect your physical self and you're not engaging in healthy eating behaviors, you're not moving in ways that feel fun for you, well, your mental health is going to suffer as a result. So the two go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. The foundation of what I do with my clients, because my undergrad degree is in psychology, is mindset related. Like we talk about mindset all the time because I've seen so many women take the right steps and make the right choices, but because they never took time to care for themselves mentally, they bounce right back to where they were before. So just like what we were talking about with fad diets earlier, and kind of what your experience alluded to, I'm doing all the right things, I'm taking these steps, I'm making progress here, but am I ever taking time just to relax? Do anything parasympathetic, like journal, read, meditate, laugh, put on some music and have a dance party in my living room? Like, what am I doing to fill my cup mentally? Because that is going to help keep me healthy and well. And if I'm not giving myself that care, the rest of what you're doing is going to crumble because you're right. You have a certain capacity. And when you're stressed, when your cup is filled up with stress and burnout and overwhelm, you've got no room, no capacity to focus on those other health behaviors. So in order to create big, powerful results, which is what I call the goals that my clients are trying to reach that last a lifetime, you have to make sure that you're taking care of your body and your brain. So we talk a lot about, what do you need right now? Like, is this week a week where maybe you need to back off and just do your non-negotiables and really focus on getting enough sleep and making an extra visit with your therapist and making sure that you're carving out a couple of minutes every day just to be alone with yourself? Or is this a week where you're feeling really good and we can push the pedal to the metal? If a program, I feel confident about saying this, but if a program doesn't account for your mental health and your mental well-being, don't do it. It's not going to serve you.
It won't work totally. Finally, I would like you to tell us 3 steps that someone that is struggling with this, like deciding that, okay, I want to get like leaner, but healthy, like a priority. Which are the 3 steps that she can take this moment?
That's a good question. 3 steps. Okay, so the first one comes to mind right away, and that would be finding your why. And why is the motivation behind the goal? So you want to get leaner, you want to fit into a smaller size jean, you want to wear a bikini this summer, whatever it is, right? You have your goal and that's cool. That's your goal. Why is it important to you? Why do you want that thing? And so I make my clients do the 5 whys, which sounds really annoying, but it really helps us to uncover how your life is going to change when you get there. Because if your life isn't going to change, you're not going to see it through, because making change requires a lot of patience, like we talked about, and a lot of consistency. So if it really means a lot to you, because maybe you want to reach the goal so that you feel more confident being intimate with your significant other, that's big. Maybe you want to reach your goal because you want to change the relationship with food that was passed down to you from your parents to your children, and you don't want that trauma to continue. You want them to feel confident with their food choices. That's huge. Maybe I've heard everything. Like, I want to go to Disney World and not have to buy 2 plane tickets. I want to be able to wake up in the morning and not avoid mirrors because I hate how my body looks. I want to be able to get on the floor to play with my grandkids. I want to go hiking without pain. I want to, wear anything with confidence and not change 5 times every morning. Like, your why is your why. But what is the deep, heavy motivation behind your goal? You need to figure that out first before you do anything. Because if you don't know why you're wanting to lose body fat, it's just body fat, right? It's not going to change your life to lose body fat. You change your life along the way. The journey is the goal.
And you will get the result and you will feel exactly the same.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like when looking back and you're like, wow, I wish I was as fat as I thought I was back then in that picture. If you've ever thought that, it's never been about your body. It's always been about your brain and your mindset. I would say that for sure. Then I would say a second step that you could take is keeping a food and mood journal. You can do it today. Like whip out a piece of paper, open up your phone, and just start tracking loosely how food leaves you feeling. If you eat a really big, heavy meal because you didn't have time to make dinner tonight, so you got takeout and you were like, whatever, we'll just do a frozen pizza or take out from our favorite place. How do you feel? Do you feel uncomfortable and bloated and puffy? Do you get reflux afterwards? What meals leave you feeling great? So is it like a big stir fry with lots of vegetables? Do you love your sweet potatoes? Do you feel really good after you have oatmeal in the morning versus cereal? Do you like eating breakfast? Do you not like eating breakfast? Like sometimes I think we're expecting to find the perfect plan that we can follow rather than asking our body what the plan is that we should follow, because that's what feels good for us. So that's another way just to kind of be in tune a little bit more with your body. I call it a food and mood journal, but it's basically just writing down, hey, here's what I eat that leaves me feeling awesome, and here's what I eat that leaves me feeling less than awesome. So we can start to draw some trends. And the third thing I would say, because I can't give specific individual action steps because that would depend on the person, obviously, but the third thing that will make a world of difference, and I don't believe in detoxing except for this kind of detox, is to detox your social media feeds of people who sell or advocate for quick fixes, fads, and deprivation diets. If you are following them, that is going into your brain and it is affecting your choices whether or not you think it is. And you don't need to see that. So unfollow, unsubscribe, and surround yourself with other like-minded people and educated professionals who are sharing no-nonsense nutrition that's actually going to leave you feeling good and help you reach your goals. That's huge.
Wow, this is awesome. Thank you so much for all this information. It's really, really precious, everything that you have said. I don't know if you have forget something or you would like to add something.
I don't think that I feel like we talked about so much and I don't really have much to add, but I will say, make sure that the goal that you're reaching for is what you really want. So something that I work with a lot of my clients on is making sure that the fat loss that they're trying to create is actually what they want and not just what they think they should want. You can be happy and healthy in a body without wanting to lose body fat. Losing body fat is not a bad thing. You can also want to live in a leaner body and go about it in a healthy, sustainable way. Those two things are great, but this is your one life and your one body. And I want to help you feel amazing in it and recognize that it's enough and make sure that you're living your healthiest life. So whatever it takes to get there is what we're going to do together, but don't try to become something or look a certain way to make someone else happy. I lived my life that way for a long time. It doesn't work. You have to really sit with yourself and ask yourself, who do I want to be? And what does that mean I look like? What does that mean I act like? How does that mean I show up? And then run hard after those things. But just make sure that the goals that you're trying to aim for are your goals and not anybody else's.
Wow, this is great. Finally, Nicole will give us such amazing gift to all this audience. Can you tell about that, Nicole?
Absolutely. So if you are listening to this and you are looking to lose body fat and do it in a healthy, sustainable way, that is my superpower. And I have a online course called the Fat Loss That Lasts Academy that I offer completely for free. So it kind of is a little toolkit for you that walks you through, well, how much do I need? What does my body need? And what does that look like as far as macronutrients go, proteins, carbs, fats, veggies, and how can I master my mindset as well? So it kind of runs you through that. And it is yours. I'm happy to gift it to you so that you can start creating fat loss in your life that feels good right away. So I will make sure that Carla has the link for you to access that course. And yeah, come on inside and join us.
Thank you so much. This is a great gift. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's a pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to release this episode. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to us. I hope that all these experiences and tools can become the boost that you need to dare to take that step that you have been thinking so much about. Please share this episode with whom you think is needing it. Take a screenshot and post in your media so more and more women will be able to live the life that they deserve. Whatever comment, suggestion, or thought you have, don't hesitate on texting. Just send a DM and we will be so glad to help you. Have a great day. Tons of blessings.